a sudden, I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and it's just, I'm looking at my father.
Kept telling me, I saw my dad. I saw my dad. Chris, he's so sorry. He's so sorry. I feel it right here. He's so sorry.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, because God is speaking to you and me and the church and the world, and here we get to listen in on those conversations through these encounters with angels. Divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. Got a little bit of everything in this episode. Welcome to it. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Closure. Heard a lot about closure. Did you have closure with your dad? You know when he died? What if it's the one who passed away who reaches out to you for closure? I think it's safe to say many of us grew up in households where the I love you wasn't so freely given, right? And we, as we grow up, we can perpetuate that with our kids, or you can't say it enough, right? So in Tom's case here, and you'll hear how the I love you was not handed out, rarely felt.
It was after he had threatened going down to the basement and shooting the three of us.
And so when his alcoholic father dies, and he hasn't seen him for years and years and years, there's all this emotion that comes rushing through, of course. And then decades later, to be sitting in church and looking across and, is that Dad? Hey, it's that handsome couple.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
Chris and Tom. We had just met them at a dinner with our mutual friends, David and Jane, and we're all telling stories, and suddenly it's, you guys have got to be on the podcast. This is too good.
And Tom came into my life at 17 and never left.
Your parents, when they met Tom, were all in from the beginning, or they learned to like this guy, or what happened?
Oh no, all in from the beginning, because he really is a great guy.
What makes Tom so great? Let's just listen, Tom. You and I, we'll just listen to what makes Tom so great.
Yeah, I'm going to listen.
Okay, listen real close because you want to live up to this.
No, he had a rough beginning in the family life.
There was one night, I was in high school where it just got out of control. His drinking and yelling and whatever in the house, and I remember having just, you know what, I'm just going to walk out in the garage, get that black bat that I know about. I'm going to walk back in here and just knock him right through the living room window. It was after he had threatened going down to the basement and shooting the three of us.
It was Tom who ended up taking the gun out of the house and have to go up to a police officer and having the pin file down and then putting the gun back so his dad wouldn't know it was missing.
So did he make the gun inoperable?
Yes.
Just to make sure he didn't go off on you guys?
Right.
Wow. That's a lot to grow up with, buddy. That's a lot to grow up with.
So when Tom told my parents that he did not want to go home anymore, my father, of course, opened up the home for him, of course, with rules.
Gotta have rules, man. Basement, Tom, where'd they send you?
Oh, of course, the basement.
So when we say it was a bad childhood, it was very dysfunctional.
My father was an alcoholic, died at 56. He actually got drunk, fell down the steps, and my brother found him 3 days later dead at the bottom of the steps with blood oozing out of his ear.
3 days later?
Yes. Another night of drinking too much, and when my brother came back on Monday morning, he found him down at the bottom of the stairs. So Dad died early in our married life, and we had not seen much of each other by then. We had kind of parted ways. I used to say once in a while that I was probably closer with my father after he died than before he died, only because you start to reflect a lot, and as you are a father, you start to put things into perspective.
Yeah, the heart is softening up a little bit. So when he died, at that time, would you say you were angry with Dad, or you didn't have closure with Dad? All the above. What was going on when he died?
Well, to be honest, it was at a time when we were having kids, and I actually didn't want him to be around the kids because I just didn't feel safe with him around the kids. I was wrestling with how to keep the separation there. And then I found out he died, and I reluctantly said to myself, oh my gosh, he solved my problem for me.
Yeah. There's almost a relief in part of this.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you had closure or not? Or
I'm always one where I say, we'll figure it out on the other side. Some of these things you can't get closure on. You just maybe wait until you're both on the same side of the pearly gates, and that's when the closure happens.
okay.
Well, I did always tell Tom when issues would come up where he would think about things, I would tell him, I promise you, your dad is learning lessons on the other side, and he's growing on the other side. So he never had him as a father. He had the alcohol as a father. So fast forward.
One weird incident, geez, I was probably about 40 at this time. Just the furnace went out. It was it was in the winter.
Yes.
And as it turned out, we were able to get some guy to come over at 7 o'clock that night. He goes up and he mentions something about when your dad called me.
And he said, your dad called me and said you needed a new furnace. And Tom's like, my father's been dead for many years. It couldn't have been my father.
So it was just all of that stuff is just, it's kind of a minestrone soup of emotions through your whole life. So anyways, we're fast forwarding to the baptism.
Who's being baptized?
It was our son-in-law's sister's 3 children.
Okay.
This church actually is kind of in a circle where the altar, most of the altar is like in the middle of everybody.
Oh,
so
okay.
when you look across, you can see quite a few people almost face to face.
Okay.
It's a smaller church.
Okay.
We're sitting down. I'm looking across from me, and there's just a man sitting there. All of a sudden, I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and it's just I'm looking at my father.
I had seen the same man, but Mass had started, and it didn't seem like the time to turn to Tom and say, boy, that guy across from us looks really familiar. But after all this happened, I knew it was Tom's dad, but I did not recognize him as Tom's dad. And Tom had kept all of this to himself. And of course, I kept it to myself because talking to Tom after Mass had already started just wasn't the right thing to
Right.
do.
But you're seeing somebody that
So,
looks really familiar.
yes, I'm seeing someone who looks really familiar. I know this man, but I couldn't place him. But Tom was already now seeing this man is his dad.
Wow.
2-3 seconds. I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and I just saw my father's face, and he had kind of a not a calming look, but almost like a remorseful look, or it was kind of comfortable, but yet I could see that I could see some sorriness in his face, and it kind of I didn't physically shake, but I could kind of feel myself kind of jerk or whatever inside, and I couldn't get him out of my mind, but the gentleman he was looking different directions. Our eyes never made contact anymore, but I was always looking at him. And then as the readings in the Gospels are going on, it's just bringing back all of these. Everything that was being said was just bringing back memories and thoughts and connection with him, and I just started feeling in my gut some, like nodding up, like I really felt like, yeah, he's sorry for what he did, wish things could have been different, but just I guess
It got pretty bad though, Trapper. Uh, by the end of Mass, Tom had to sit down. He was just started weeping. I mean, just
I I was holding it together throughout the entire mass. I had a whirlwind of thoughts going on, and we went to communion. And on the way back, I thought, I need Chris to see this guy. I need her to kind of did you see anything? Did you feel anything? Because she's sitting next to me this whole time and didn't have a clue what I was kind of going through. And by the time I could get the fix back onto where he was, he's gone.
Before we had left the pew, he had to sit down and he said, kept telling me, I saw my dad. I saw my dad. Chris, he's so sorry. He's so sorry. I feel it right here. He's so sorry. And that's all he could say. And I was like, oh my God, that was your dad. And I was able to remember who that man was. And but it didn't dawn on me who he was in the beginning. And then he said, get me out of the church. So
We got up and I just went straight out to the parking lot and went into the car, just trying to pull myself together.
he could barely make it to the car. He was just so unsteady. But once we got to the car, he was just weeping. But he said he kept turning to me and he kept saying, he's so sorry. He's so sorry. And I'm like, I believe you. I totally believe you. I do. And he goes, I saw him, Chris. I said, I believe you. And I said, Tom, I always told you he's going to learn lessons on the other side. Well, it changed everything. It just absolutely changed everything because now, when Tom thinks back on his childhood, now, Trapper, he's got the closure he needed. Now, his dad was able to say, I'm here and I really am sorry. And maybe he wasn't the dad, he wasn't the dad Tom deserved, but he did make his peace.
After that, I just realized that, you know what, we'll we will finally have the chance to hug and when we're both on the other side.
What a special day for all of this to happen, you know?
Absolutely. And the baptism was just absolutely beautiful. And they had all the family, Father had all the family come up. So everybody was just thrilled for all of us to be together and to be sharing this special sacrament. But nobody, at least not Tom and I, nobody else knew what was going on except Tom and I. And Tom did. He held it together through the whole mass. But then all of a sudden he just collapsed because he did feel just all the remorse from his father, and which I'm grateful for. I'm truly grateful. And I thanked him profusely all day that day because Tom needed that closure.
And it's not that time heals wounds, but you can now put things into perspective and know that he is remorseful. And even though I say early on that I forgave him, it was more of I just need to put it behind me and move on. But now, I kind of feel like we can maybe have that relationship that we were never able to have as a father and son.
It's kind of interesting listening to the two of you. Christine, obviously you have a very vivid memory of everything Tom was going through and how he was holding it together and the tears afterwards in the car. And, he's so sorry. And the impact on you was pretty profound.
It was.
But coming through that, what I'm hearing, Tom, is that there was a forgiveness on your part to understand that he was so sorry. Something happened in you too. There's just no question. You can't go through that without something happening, and not just, when we get to heaven. No. I mean, in the moment, you're feeling something, and there has to be something coming back. There has to be some kind of. I've heard this said that there's always an excuse. And this is how God looks at us. There's always an excuse for our sin. Just say you're sorry for it, but there's always an excuse. There's something that happened. There's a weakness or something happened to create something. There's always an excuse for our sins. There always is, including your dad's. And in that
Right.
understanding of what your dad was going through and feeling and the remorse and all of that, something came out of you too. You didn't react with hostility of, yeah, well, screw you, pal. It's too late now. You didn't. You cried in sucking all of that love from your father into you And I got to believe that changed your heart.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I could only see the good. It's almost like those bad memories are almost difficult to bring back. Like we've moved beyond that, and now when I think of them, I just try to think of things that happened from a positive perspective.
And someone just told me this. A very good friend just told me there's always hope. There's always room for forgiveness. You cannot have, you may have to walk away in a situation or in a conflict situation, but there always has to be forgiveness. Always. It's just going to eat, you're just
Yeah.
going to eat yourself up
Yeah.
if you don't forgive.
I think I'm still kind of sorting through it because that day was the confirmation to me that yes, although I forgave him for years, it was the confirmation from him that said, yes, I'm glad things turned out for you the way they have. I wish it could have been different for us. And I guess really I haven't really thought about it from now, but I think maybe he was trying to tell me he was proud of where I got to be because I am now 10 years older than he was when he passed.
Yeah. Do you believe that he loved
And
you?
he didn't,
I think so. Those words were never used in my family.
Yeah, I hear you. They're not used in a lot of families. It's very unfortunate. It's only what we're here for, to love and be loved.
right,
That's
right.
pretty much it. And I know you love him.
Yes.
God bless you. Let's pause right about here. Then more with Chris and Tom, and things are about to get scary. Quick Patreon shout out here to Maura and Paul Nicholas. Thanks, guys, for supporting us through Patreon on a monthly basis. And I got to tell you, this is just a couple of my favorite people. They become such great friends. Paul and I are fellow Knights of Columbus members. Maura is just a stitch and just a beautiful soul. And in fact, the two of them were in Medjugorje with us, Paul and Maura. And we were walking to church. And I don't know, they were 10, 15 feet behind Elizabeth and I. And I just stopped and I turned around. I looked to Maura and I said, Maura, say something profound. It's like, what? She doesn't miss a beat. She takes the Vegas line, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And instead she says, what happens in Medjugorje should not stay in Medjugorje. It's like, ooh, that was profound. That's Maura. So thanks, Maura and Paul Nicholas, for supporting us here at Patreon. You can do the same. Touchedbyheaven.net. Click through here on episode, where are we? 357. Or go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. Thank you. And by the way, speaking of Medjugorje, if you've been wondering when we're going to go back, nothing official to say just yet, but be looking at October. October looks like something may be bubbling up there for Elizabeth and I, and maybe you heading off to Medjugorje for a week. More on that coming up. Okay. All right. That's all I can say right now. That's all I know right now. Okay. So let's get back now to Chris and Tom as things are about to get scary. And this happened how many years ago now, Chris?
20 years ago. I went to bed and I went to bed before Tom did. And all of a sudden, our bedroom got ice cold. I mean, ice cold. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And my daughter was working in a hospital at the time. She made comment that she thought something was in the house. Then I looked down the hallway and I saw our one cat, and she was on her back and she was like pawing for her life. And I'm like, okay, that's it. We've got something in the house. So I went running down the hallway towards her and I scooped her up and I took her downstairs with me, and she was just scared out of her mind. We went to a talk and Marianne Winkowski was speaking because it happened I remember it happened in October, and she was doing her typical October near Halloween time
Right. Because
talks.
we had her on every Halloween morning for 25 years.
And I had heard about her through your show. So that's why we went to go see her. I bought her book and she looked up at me and she goes, "Oh, I got to come to your house." And I was like, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Yeah, you got to call me. I need to come to your house." And she says, "Does your husband work in the hospital?" I said, "No." And she says, "Someone works in the hospital." And I said, "Yes, my daughter." She goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, that gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling."
Yeah. Did
So
she see something attached to you, or what was it?
not attached to me, but there was a ghost behind me that had gone with me to the talk
Hmm.
and told Marianne what was going on. And it turns out that this ghost that was behind me followed Lisa home.
Your daughter.
And this was not the ghost that was bothering us, but this was the ghost that was protecting my daughter. We had an appointment made. We were having some work done on one of the bathrooms. So Lisa said she was going to use our bathroom to shower before she went to work. All of a sudden, she realized that someone was moving the door handle to the bathroom. She said it was Dad's voice and saying, "Let me in." And she says, "Wait a minute, Dad would never do that." So she got dressed and came downstairs to Tom and I laughing in the kitchen and the kids laughing. And she said, "Mom," she said, "Dad just tried to get into the bathroom." I said, "Honey, your father hasn't moved from here." I said, and then I was like, "Okay, this is weird." So I called Marianne and I told her what happened. And she said, "Okay, that was the ghost." I said, "Okay." So she said, "Don't worry about it." She says, "I'll get there as soon as I can." She was about 2 weeks out. The beds were shaking.
So you have to put up with
Um,
this for 2 weeks.
yeah, there was banging going on in the house. The cat was scared out of her mind. And Marianne walked in and I said, "Do you see it?" And she goes, "Oh no, there were three of them. They're very bad." She says they went into a portal. She goes, "Thump, thump, thump." She goes, they won't deal with me." She says, "They're in there." She goes, "We're going to deal with that first." So she goes upstairs, closes the portal, which was opened by the previous owners with their fighting and their arguing.
Hmm.
As she has explained on some of your shows, where she closes it and uses blessed oil to close it,
Mhm.
and she just shrinks the portal. But she says, "But now we need to deal with the ghost, another ghost." And I'm like, "Another ghost?" She goes, "Yes." She says, "This ghost followed your daughter home from the hospital, and she's the one who told me what was going on here." I said,
But
"Okay."
this one's the better ghost.
But this one is the good ghost, yes.
Okay.
And she says she died in the 70s. She sat with us for 2 hours and told us exactly what was going on in our house.
Right.
And she was exactly right. And so this woman stayed with Lisa, never left Lisa's side, she said, because this one other ghost was trying to get at Lisa.
These are and
Things,
people think these are crazy stories. I heard these.
oh,
I know Marianne very well, as you know. Heard it for
yes,
25 years. It's very real.
it is
And
very
no
real.
one's
And
conjure. People say you can't. You're not supposed to conjure up. No one's conjuring up anything. They're
no,
around.
they're around. They are always around. Well, I'm the one who had the last experience I had was I was laying in bed and it was early morning, and all of a sudden a hand went up my leg and used my full name, Christine, and that scared the bejiggers out of me because it was an ice cold hand. And I after remember after that I would sleep like in the middle of the bed, and things would scare us in the night. Tom would say, "You okay?" I'm okay. And Tom was sleeping that night and something tried to pull him out of bed.
I was not asleep, but I was kind of in a daze, but it's I can still see it. This long hoofed leg was coming up over my chest and trying to pull me down around the bed. And it, it, I don't know if I got up. I don't know if I yelled for Chris, but it was like,
I was pulling him back into the bed, and believe me, there's no way Tom was trying to roll out of the bed. There's a difference between someone trying to roll out of the bed, someone being pulled out of the bed. And it took every ounce of energy I had. And I just started praying to St. Michael for him to intercede now. St. Michael, I am not asking you. And as soon as I said, "I'm not asking," I was able to pull Tom, and We almost fell out the other side because I was pulling him so hard. It was just,
No, it was just
oh,
and my reaction was, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
we were able to calm each other down. We went to sleep, and Marianne was there within a couple of days. She cleaned everything out, sealed up the house, and we never had another problem.
When Marianne came out, how matter of fact she was, we sat there and everything she said was dead on. It just all made sense. And how casually she was able to handle that situation, and just the calmness that I felt after she left.
Yeah. It was amazing. Everything just was calm, just pure calm. And I remember praying and thanking God for sending Marianne to us. And now I pray for everyone who goes through something like that because it is real. It
Yeah, and
is
not
real.
everybody has a Marianne Winkowski to come to their house,
No,
So as soon as Marianne did her thing, total calm, right?
Yeah.
total calm. But the strange part was, Trapper, we had lived in that house for 17 years and never experienced anything.
And again, she just sees this lower level stuff. She doesn't see angels. She doesn't see all that saintly stuff. She's always kind of dealt with the ugly part of the other side, and she's always considered it a gift. But
Yes.
but I still remember doing a television. We did I don't know, it was a noon television show. I was filling in one day on television, and so Marianne was going to be there. And this one story still just strikes me. Someone was on, said they thought they had a ghost. Marianne says, yeah. And I would always, to prove the point, I would always say, okay, where are you seeing the ghost? Because she first thought she was seeing things through the ghost eyes, but it wasn't. It was like from another place. And she said, I can see him. He's in your bedroom right now. And I said, near what? So describe the bedroom so everyone believes that this is what it is. And she just said, yeah, he's standing next to the chair where you've piled all where you just threw the clean laundry out of the dryer or whatever it was. And the woman, I mean, how many times is that going to be right? And sure enough,
Right.
or the time she says, oh, he's out in the backyard next to the tractor. Well, that's pretty specific. And she went, and the person in the home just kind of went, okay. It was like, because she had a tractor out there, and she could do this stuff over the phone. She could tell where things were, and it
Yes.
was mind-boggling. I've never seen anything.
Yes.
I've never seen anyone do these kinds of shows out there that talk about ghosts. Anyone come close to what Marianne
No.
was gifted to be able to do. But anyway, all right. I always ask my guests for the takeaway.
What I think actually, Trapper, is God is always in control. God will put the perfect people in place when you need them most. I think as far as Tom's dad goes, there's a lot of people who have suffered horrible childhoods. There's always hope. Um, don't fall back on what you were raised with. Always do what's right. Find your faith. Hold on to your faith. Um, that's what we do. We hang on to our faith.
God has final say. He has.
He does.
He allows certain things to happen for whatever his purposes, and there's just no question that he's allowed some interesting things to happen to the two of you in your married life. So God bless you. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this.
Thanks again, Chris and Tom, reminding us there is a lot going on around us, the unseen world, and reminding us what this life is all about. Love. It all boils down to one word, and that is love. And certainly sharing that love and letting others know that we do love them and that we do forgive and that we are sorry and all those things that sometimes remain unsaid and how powerful those words are. And sometimes all we really need to hear is, I'm sorry. And sometimes all someone else needs to hear is, I'm sorry. And then to have that forgiveness and you begin again. So thanks again, Chris and Tom. All right, what is your story? Come here to touchedbyheaven.net and share it, and we'll chat, okay? All right, and thanks for the Patreon help again, patreon.com. Search for Trapper Jack, and I will see you again next week here at Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack, and I like to keep transparent here. I like to show everything Is it showing?
I can still see it. This long hoofed leg